Prayer is not an uncommon subject at all, but let's see today if we can look at it a little different from the eyes of HeartLight. I'd like to start out with Charles Fillmore. Says, prayer is the most highly accelerated mind action known. It steps up mental action until man's consciousness synchronizes with Christ's mind. That's good, isn't it?
Yes.
Let's take that in. Prayer is the most highly accelerated mind action known. It steps up mental action until man's consciousness synchronizes with Christ's mind. Now that's what we but we intend to do here in these services. The singing, everything that is done is a tuning process.
Yes.
See, we're tuning ourselves. Hearing positive celebrations might make you feel better to hear somebody's positive celebration of something wonderful that's happened to them. Maybe some words in a song that we sing just touches you in some way, and it lifts you just a little bit, or gives you a different perspective of how you were seeing something in your life. And all of that is leading us to a place to become in tuned so that we can hear from the mind of spirit. And that's what we want to hear from. Romans 8 says the Spirit sighs within us. One translation says it groans. It sighs within us with words too deep to articulate, assisting us in prayers when we struggle to know how to pray properly. When we feel restricted in our humanity, Spirit supersedes our clumsy efforts and hits the bullseye every time. Of course, that's mirror. You can tell the language is always when it's mirror versus the regular Bible. But I love that Spirit knoweth how to pray. That's what it says. I know we think we do. We think that everything that appears or we perceive as not being what we think it should be, we want to manipulate it and change it to be that. We think that everybody that's sick should be immediately healed. People who have a pain or an issue, we want to pray that pain away. But you've got to realize all these things we're feeling in our body, in our mind, psychologically, depression, anxiety, as well as our physical pains, is all a message to us. It's talking to us. And wonder if that message hasn't gotten through to you what it's about, and then some healer comes along and wants to heal you. I know that sounds good. I would be the first in line, probably, if I had something, a challenge going on with me, and somebody said, I've got the answer for you. And I do. I mean, I try everybody, But sometimes that's not at all what's going on, because some things are being used for my purpose of growth and evolution. You that have been through some really big challenges, let's say you've had, you're a survivor of cancer or something like that. Do you realize how much stronger you are because of that? At the same time, do you realize how compassionate you are because of that? It's not just about being strong, but it's about being compassionate to other people who have gone that, because you've been through there. As the Native Americans say, walk a mile in my moccasins, then talk to me.
Yes.
So this is why we, I'm going to say we, many of us, believe in the prayer language. When we talk about light language, or what we used to talk about as tongues, actually is spirit language.
Okay.
It's spirit speaking of itself.
Yes.
It doesn't need a filter. But it's speaking in its most purest form of itself. And when it does, it always speaks and prays the will for one's life. And we need to sometimes be able to pray more in that spiritual part of ourselves. Let's look at the word prayer. This is not new. I've taught this, but again, this is a review for HeartLight for you that have been here a while, and you that are new need to understand that we have to look at the word prayer and try to get back into the most original language that we can possibly get it to, which would be the language that Yeshua would have spoken when he walked this earth, which is most likely Hebrew and Aramaic. Most likely the sect that he was probably a part of, that many of us believe, called the Essenes, spoke in the Aramaic language. So Jesus spoke a lot in Aramaic, and until you really understand him in Aramaic, you really won't understand what he's saying at all. One of the worst translations there is Jesus on the cross in the Bible, and he's crying out, my God, why have you forsaken me? That never worked for me. Like, what's going on here? That God would send his son to die and to have all this pain and whatever. Now, I'm not saying that I even know what really all that means and what happened. I don't know. If I was there, I don't remember being there. But whatever it was. But in the Aramaic, it's not that. It's not that God forsaken. He's crying out to the Father in a way in which he is saying, for this was I prepared and born. Totally different than, why did you forsake me? And of course, I won't get into it, but I see the crucifixion only as the crucifixion of the ego mind. You can't crucify Christ. How do you crucify something that has no beginning and no end, no birth and no death? It is the eternal part of things, so that would not make sense. So whatever happened there, whatever it is, it was in divine order. It wasn't a God misusing his son in a painful way that is portrayed in there. So it's important that we get back to these languages. So let's look at the word prayer. They came to Yeshua, Jesus, and asked him, teach us to pray. That's interesting. I think that's what's missing. People are not taught how to pray. We just pray the way we think we've been told to pray. But sometimes we need to be taught how to pray. So teach us to pray. The word that they would have used in the Aramaic would be teach us to slotha. S-L-O-T-H-A. You got it up here. Interesting word. It is a word that actually is a influence from a Latin word, salah. Salah. And this word actually would mean, and the way we could best translate it, is to set a trap. So why are Jesus saying, I'm going to teach you how to set a trap? Now you have to realize that in the East, they have two levels of understanding that we would call the natural, physical, and the spiritual, the metaphysical. Everything had two levels to it, two meanings to it, which is very different to the Western mind. We have no understanding of how to hear things in their literal sense and to understand it from its more metaphysical origin of some kind. So I find it interesting that that's the word that is chosen, teach us how to slotha. So let's take it on level one, on our human level, when we hear that, and we might think of me and who can I pick on here? Joe. I'll pick on Joe. Let's just pretend we're people who like to go hunting. I am not a hunter, but I'm going to for just a moment pretend that I enjoy going hunting, you know. And so I say to Joe, let's get up Saturday morning and let's go and sloth up. Now, what he would hear me on a natural level is, let's go out in the woods somewhere, let's take our traps and let's set traps and see what kind of animals that we can trap. That's the word that is being used on a natural level. But when you look at it in the Aramaic and in the metaphysical, it doesn't mean that at all. It comes from the word that means to make an adjustment, to focus, to tune in. The modern concept would be select a proper channel. Now, you all do this all the time with your little remote control, with all those numbers on it. And it's amazing, that little remote with just those numbers on it, how many different combinations of numbers you can use on there to get a frequency that shows up on your screen. If you know the right 3 numbers or so, and you're trying to get on Netflix, and Netflix is always there. It doesn't come and go because you don't see it on your screen. Netflix is moving through your house all the time. The frequency of Netflix is always there, like the other hundreds of things that some of you have flowing through. But to bring it into focus, you got to tune into it, right? And if you tune into it and on the right frequency, then it manifests on the screen. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to manifest, aren't we? Yes. We're trying to we know some wonderful things. We know we are whole, for instance, but how about manifesting that wholeness? We know as a whole being that we are not sick and we are not at all able to have disease. And most of all, there is no death. So what are the frequencies that we can put in and tune ourselves to these things that are already there, but they haven't shown up on the screen of our life? So that's what prayer is for. Prayer is for a time of tuning in. And what this means in the Aramaic would mean this: using the mind to be quiet and still. You see, when Joe and I are out there in the woods, we got to get real still or we're never going to catch anything. If Joe's going to talk all the time, and we know that Joe can do that, Joe's a talker. He's quiet until you get him going. So if Joe's going to get out there and start on his thing, Joe, we're not going to catch a thing. You got to be quiet. You got to be still. So if we're able to get still enough, possibly we can catch something. So what does this mean to us? Quiet the mind to a still place so you can trap the thoughts of God.
That's good. That's good.
That's what meditation is supposed to be really about. Quieting the mind as much as possible to a point that you can begin to catch the thoughts of God. I've always taught for a long, long time that we want to use our own thoughts. But I don't want to get into this because I get in trouble every time. Your own thoughts in your head, in your mind, in your brain, okay, are thoughts that's been downloaded from the outside of yourself. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Most everything that you talk about, how you see things, how you perceive things, is somebody taught you that. I mean, you would not know this was a chair. I mean, this object here ain't going to tell you, hey, I'm a chair. You're going to tell this object it's a chair because the chair lives in here first.
Right.
Somebody told you that object is a chair.
Yes.
So we've downloaded all this data about what things are, so the brain can think about something and not be the thing it's thinking about. Hear me. So that means you can intellectually learn about love. We use that word a lot. God is love. It's all about love, 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 love. Now, I've studied love. I could do a pretty good seminar. I could do a pretty good workshop on the subject of love. I could tell you all the 7 Greek words in the Bible that's translated love, from agape to phileo to eros to all. There's all kinds of levels of love. I could sound really pretty smart about love. You think, boy, he knows a lot about love. But where's the love? I have knowledge about something in my head. But when I walk out of here and I go down to Red Robin and the waitress has had a bad day and spills water on me or gets the order wrong, and I get really kind of just pissed at it and get kind of hateful and mean, and I just left the seminar about we are love. We are love. It's because it hadn't shown up on the screen of my life.
Talk about it.
So let's turn this around and let's stop learning about love and learn how to shut our perception of love down to create a space in us for love to become a divine thought in us which holds itself.
Yes.
Are you with me? Yes. Love becomes the thought.
Yes.
Right. So I wanted to say that about that. Mark 11:24 says, therefore I tell you, whatsoever you ask in prayer, believe you've already received it, and it will be yours. Believe you've already received it. I like this one in Matthew 6 and 7. Jesus is talking to his followers, and he says, when you pray, use not vain repetitions, as unbelievers do. For they think they shall be heard for their much speaking. Now, if you've ever been in a Pentecostal church, you will hear some long prayers. These people know how to pray. So, why all these words? For your Father knows what things you have need of before you ask. So if you're a visitor and you come in here and we do our prayer thing, and Kathy gives the list, and then we read what we do, all we do, we're not praying for this stuff to be done because we know it's already done in the Spirit. We're affirming that it's been done. So our prayer here is an affirmation of what has already been accomplished. Romans 4:17 says, call those things which are not as though they were.
Yes.
Well, my favorite one is, let the weak say they are strong. That means you don't have to be strong to say you are strong. Even in your weakest moments, you can declare, I am strong. That's faith. That's vision. Spirit does not attempt to persuade God about us, but persuade us about God through prayer.
Okay. Yeah.
I will. That's a good one. Spirit does not attempt to persuade God about us, but to persuade us about God through prayer. I have heard people pray. I've done it. And I call it wheeling and dealing. Oh God, if you will do this for me, I'll come to church every Sunday. I'll up my offering. I'll pay my tithes regularly. I'll go visit the sick. I mean, we just will and deal with God, trying to get a deal going. And it's just not that way at all. So I can't talk about prayer without speaking a little bit this morning on prayer as intercession. And that came up, I believe, Wednesday, that we've decided to have an intercessor circle. Working on that, but we're going to do it. If it has to be on a Wednesday, we'll do it. But we are going to have a time for intercession. What does the word intercede or intercession mean? It comes from the Latin inter, not E-N, I-N-T-E-R, meaning between, and sid, meaning go. In other words, it's a go-between. People who intercede are go-between people. They're people who stand in the gap and make up the hedge. Scripture tells us that when we pray and pray of intercession, we are building bridges between God and the people to whom we pray. I like that. Ernest Holmes says, when prayer removes distrust and doubt and enters the field of mental certainty, it becomes faith. And the universe is built on faith. When prayer removes distrust and doubt. This one I wanted to share with us. I think we need to listen to this one carefully. 2 Timothy 2, 1 and 2. I admonish and urge that petitions, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgiving be offered on behalf of all humankind. Not just the ones you agree with. For kings, presidents, and all of high responsibility, authority, that we may live peaceful lives. I just wonder if we could spend a half to three-fourths of the time of criticizing and disliking certain people and spent that time praying for them. That is being spiritual and not religious.
Yeah.
That's what it means to be spiritual and to be rather than just religion. People who are doing not such good things for the whole have forgotten who they are. They have sold out entirely to their humanity, to their ego. And of course, what goes with that is always greed. It is the grounds where greed is birthed. The more money, the more power, the more recognition, the more we forget who we are for who we think that we are. So my prayer is, let them have a moment. You did. Every one of you sitting here who sit in a Catholic church or a Baptist church or a Methodist church or whatever organized religion out there, you had a moment or you wouldn't be here.
All right.
Mm-hmm. You had a moment of awakening that changed your path forever. And I'm saying, if that can happen to you and I, maybe it could happen for anybody. I don't care how bad it looks, how horrible it looks. It does not put them outside the circle of God's love for all. In Hebrews 27:6, for such a high priest became us, who is holy and harmless and undefiled. For Hebrews 5:2 says, who can have compassion on the unconscious and on them that are out of the way, for that one, he or herself is also compassed with such infirmity. What that means is the experiences that you've taken on gives you a compassion for others who have experienced that same experience. I would not be a good counselor if your issue, say, was alcoholism. That's your issue. You come from a family of alcoholics. You too are an alcoholic. You can't stay away from the alcohol. I'm not judging. I'm just using as an example. This could be anything. But I would not be good, because my attitude would be, stop it. You know that's not good for you. That's not helping you. And that's the last thing you need, is for somebody to tell you to stop it. But if I could meet you in empathy, I will not meet you in sympathy. That's coming down to your level. But I'll stay up here and have empathy. And if you're ready, you can rise to this level. Does that make sense to you? So what I'm trying to get you to see here is that everything that's happened in your life, no matter how painful, how horrible it was for you to go through, really becomes valuable to you, because you are the divine having this human experience. How does a spiritual being that we call God, the spiritual being, this infinite, this beyond us, it can't do it unless it put itself in us to experience us as us. We always think it's all about us experiencing God. No, God said, I'd like to experience you. I'd like to know what you humans are up to. You've got some really crazy stuff that I don't get. As long as I stay up here on the spirit realm, I don't get it. The Course of Miracles is very challenging to me, but I get this and agree with it now. But it said that God doesn't even know all the stuff you're going through. He just knows his son's not happy.
Okay.
In other words, he's not getting down into your stuff until he gets into you, and then he's in your stuff. You hear what I'm saying to you?
Yeah, that's right.
I hope that makes sense to you. But I believe that everything you've gone through is God experiencing humanity. So now you have a consciousness in which you can bring all your experiences in your life, you can bring God into it. And not separate it and say, this was of God, this was probably the devil. No. God, in fact, I got a book back there you ought to read sometime. But it's called God on Assignment As You, the real story of incarnation. God experiencing itself as you. So, that makes sense. That's just something that is given to me. But I love this. How are we going to have compassion on unconscious until we ourselves have been compressed with the infirmity? So I guess bottom line, what I tell people, everything in your life that seems like the heavy lead is the thing that can be transformed into the gold of your life. People say to me, I'd like to start a little ministry. Now, a ministry doesn't mean that you got to go start a church or a group or be in the position I am up here right now. But every one of you in your own way can start your own ministry. And you can have that ministry in the grocery line, the bank, wherever you are, that somehow people connect with you. You ever been in line and somebody ahead of you just has to turn around and start a conversation with you because they're drawn to some frequency in you that matches some frequency in them?
Yes, that's right.
And when you open yourself up to them, and you're spiritual, and you're positive, and you're loving with them, you're ministering to that person.
Yes, yes.
So every one of you have a ministry every day of letting the light shine in somebody's life. So be aware more of these opportunities. Instead of, oh my God, look at the coupons she's got. And say, no, that woman up there has all the coupons because I need time to talk to this woman who just turned around
Okay.
That's good.
and recognized me. That's God giving me some time.
Yes, yes.
See, we get too anxious. We want things to be in control and be it this, that way, and another. And we don't recognize the rhythm of spirit is different than the rhythm of our human. They're not the same sometimes. And that's where we get frustrated. If once we get into sync and get the rhythm of spirit with the rhythm of our humanity, we can make a beautiful song. Ministry. I hope that can help you. Just to be more mindful of all of these opportunities that we're given constantly to let our light shine, to say something encouraging, to emanate love where it has been lost in some possible way. So yes, we have a little different point of view of prayer here than most people. But I am not going to use prayer to try to manipulate a God. Like, God, you don't know, I need to tell you what to do here. Here's my list. So even though we have a prayer list here, we end it with an affirmation from wholeness rather than brokenness.
Come on. That's it.
You that have taken some energetics with me through the years know that I've taught all practitioners to work with people's wholeness, not their brokenness.
Amen.
And the way you have to do that, and this is something I like in Science of Mind, they call it treatment, but this is the place in which you have to heal your mind.
Yes.
Okay.
You got to heal your mind first before you even begin to work with anybody else to bring healing, because all consciousness is in contact with all other consciousness at a deep level. And I've told them, I said, don't you dare between some client go back there and call your significant other, have an argument, get all upset, and then come out and sound tuning forks, because sound is a carrier of consciousness. Say it with me. Sound is a carrier of consciousness. So clear yourself, heal yourself, have empathy. The person is going to tell you all the things that's wrong with them. Be able to listen to them, but not lose your power. Don't get sucked in. Just listen to it, but hold your place. Hold your state that they are truly created whole. Whatever the body is going through. And then heal your mind of erroneous thinking, of anything other than wholeness.
That's right.
So there is a different method here that I think we need to understand that has not been taught to us by most of our religion and most of our churches pertaining to prayer. So, once in a while, let's go hunting. Let's go hunting. And that's why I so appreciate you that come to the meditation, because in the stillness of that 20 minutes, we are using our minds to set a trap and see what thoughts of God we can trap in this service today. God is always speaking, always. We just are not always in a place to hear.